Hello, I'm Mike Day, Dealer Service Representative here at AGWS, and welcome to our October AGWSU F&I Insights webinar. Today, Joe St. John, Senior Vice President of Business Development at StoneEagle, and Bob Harkins, our Vice President of Training here at AGWS, will discuss how the pandemic is changing F&I sales, the growth of digital retail, emerging trends in vehicle sales, and F&I sales. If you have any questions or comments, please type them in the panel on the right, and we will try to address them as they come in. For follow-up questions, you can email those to bharkins@agws.com. So with that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Thank you very much, Mike Day. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to F&I Insights, webinar number 26 in our F&I Insights webinar. We certainly appreciate your following us and comments that you've made and the opportunity that we've had to set up and do training as it remains, whether it be remote or in person in dealerships after these webinars. How the pandemic is changing F&I sales, the growth of digital retail, emerging trends in F&I sales, and vehicle sales as well. We're very pleased to have Joe St. John with us today. Joe, again, as Mike said, is Senior Vice President of Business Development at StoneEagle. Joe and I have worked before, and most recently, just last month, I had the privilege of being the MC moderator of the Agent Summit at Bellagio, Las Vegas. We had over 500 attendees, and Joe was one of our keynote speakers on that second day. Just did a great job. The title of that conference was Innovation 2021. The title of Joe's comments was the Digital F&I Window. And Joe, I must tell you that you were really right on with that. And it was just a heck of a topic and also great information that you presented. We really appreciate you taking time out and your busy schedule. I know you're at the Digital Retail Conference in Vegas and carving out the time to spend a few minutes with us.
Yeah, I just realized, Bob, that I'm such a nerd. I still have my badge on. Like, I came up to my room to do this, and then as I was I realized I hit the badge. So thank you for having me. Bob, you're such a inspiring legend in our business. I know so many people that I respect as leaders in this business who speak to the time going through your training school as a pivotal moment in the arc of their career. And so whether it's people that work in dealerships today, run big automotive groups, people that work in technology, the list of people I know, including people on my own team like Kane Wrench, that have benefited by being mentored and taught and led by you is a long list. So for me, anytime I get to spend with you, Bob, talking about a business I'm so passionate about and a space of that business that is incredibly near and dear to my heart, is time well spent for me. So Bob, thank you so much for having me on. I'm truly honored to be here today.
Our pleasure. Again, it's great to have you with us, and thank you for the comments. It just means that I'm getting very old. They've just turned 77. So thank you for kind of bringing that up a roundabout way anyhow, but just feel great. So let's start with this topic, how the pandemic is changing F&I sales. And I know in that article that you wrote back for F&I Showroom with that same title, you talked about the fact that the pandemic has really ushered in a new normal that puts F&I in a state of flux for a number of reasons. You want to kind of take a run with that and share with the group what you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think that if you look at the kind of the process of evolution that our business has gone through, we're in a really unique time right now, right? I mean, from the chip shortage and the fact that used car inventory is running at 200 points at Manheim Index, right? All the things that are happening right now, we're in this really unique space, and it's a unique space. It's following a unique space. It's following a unique space, right? We've been in these kind of unique circumstances now for the last couple of years, and when I think about what the pandemic did, it's easy now to forget, and I think a lot of us want to forget what that pandemic felt like initially, right? I was at a dealership on March 13th. It was a Friday, I believe, and because it was Friday the 13th. I was in a room doing training with salespeople, and it was in March. So I had a bunch of conferences coming up. And while I was up there standing, I see all these notes, my phone starts blowing up of all these conferences being postponed. And while that was happening to me, the salespeople in the room, like their phones are blowing up and all their appointments are canceling. And I remember the dealer coming in. He's a good friend of mine. His name's Bill Knight. He's a incredible dealer. He's somebody I really look up to. And Bill came in and he had been at the Oklahoma City Thunder game the night before, the one that got canceled due to COVID. And he comes home. He's like, "Hey, this is getting real." He's like, he knows he's like, "Joe, you should call Lori, get her to get some groceries. Like this is not the bird flu. Like this is different and things are going to change." And so, I think for a lot of us, we looked up that next week and it was like the whole world as we'd known it had kind of been flipped on its head. And I think about like not only like how anxiety inducing and kind of scary it was for just a personal level, but then also from, a business level, when all of a sudden, I've got friends that are dealers in places like New Jersey where their governor shut down all like non-essential businesses, and their service department was deemed essential. Their sales department was deemed non-essential. And you've got a business owner that's running, a dealership trying to figure out, how am I going to survive if I can't sell cars? Because my whole life has been selling cars. And when you think about the response, it's one of the things that I'm most proud about of being in auto is how like unbelievably like gritty and creative our dealers and the people that work in dealerships are, right? Like if you want to see maximum creativity, show me somebody that's got 2 days left in the month and is like a half a unit away from hitting their next level in their pay plan, right? Like they are going to get incredibly creative. You show me gritty, show the work ethic of somebody that's a car deal and a half away and they got 3 days left in the month. That's somebody that's working hard, like they're gritty. I mean, and so for me, I was impressed at kind of the grittiness of our responses and the creativity of dealers being like, look, we can't do it the way we've always done it. We're going to find a way to do it. And I really think it kind of opened up the Pandora's box of the old way of doing it isn't a requirement anymore. Not saying that it's not the right way, not saying that we're not that most dealers are still doing it the traditional way, but that if push came to shove, we could sell cars a different way. And what happened was, because of that, you had these dealers that in mass, and I was at AutoFi at the time, in mass like quantities were buying digital retailing tools and plugging them on their website and exposing payments to customers that were shopping for cars on the website. And, NADA did a study on it in 2020. And before, like in 2018, less than 5% of dealers had payment information on their website. Like less than 5% of dealers had like pay. And by the end of 2020, it was over 91%, meaning the vast majority of dealers were like, nope, we're going to put this payment information up there. And that payment information in most cases was interactive. So the ability for me as a customer to like sit in my living room with an iPad and build my car deal and find the car that I want and choose my down payment and select my credit and see what the rate would be and put that together. Some cases I'd even let them like apply, send the application through Route 1 or Dealer Track over, get a real-time approval back. So they were actually pre-approved. And in a lot of cases at that point, it would show F&I products. Like, do you want Gap? Here's what Gap covers. Do you want, and so what you had was, in this real short amount of time, the point of sale, as the way we've always known it in auto, became much more fluid, right? So for me as a sales manager at a dealership, here's where my point of sale was. I would be sitting at the tower and I'd look out there and like, one of my salespeople, Alicia, would be sitting there, and across from her would be a customer, and there'd be a sheet of paper between them with my green or black Sharpie marks all over it. And that was the point of sale, right? They would come to a loose agreement. Once they did, they'd sign their deal worksheet. They'd go into the F&I office, they'd check in with the director, and then they would do the F&I. That was how the point of sale worked. And what you saw really in April and May of 2020 was this, all of a sudden now that point of sale could be in the customer's living room, right? That customer could be laying in bed and at 11 o'clock at night, select the car that they want, structure the deal the way that they want, submit an application online, get an approval, self-select Gap and Tire and Wheel, and schedule an appointment to show up tomorrow at 11:30 to pick that up. And because of that, all of these considerations of F&I started moving upstream. So people were asking salespeople about what Gap is because they'd seen it on the website. And, for me, when I think about that, I know the threat of that, right? Like I know very clearly what's the threat of salespeople talking about F&I. What is the threat of customers structuring their own car deal? And the threat was that we were going to make less profit in F&I. We were going to sell less products. Our gross was going to get eroded away. And if you graph out, front end gross and back end gross, right? Oh no, front end gross is going to get even more of a hit because now customers are working payments and I'm going to have to give it up somewhere to get in the payment range that they want. Right. What you find is that if you look at you graph out from 2019 through 2022, at StoneEagle, we have 6,400 dealers we do business with. We provide, millions of reports every year to dealership personnel and F&I analytics. We have data that goes back a long time. We can literally analyze and slice that data in tons of ways. So we looked at 25 million car deals from January of 19 until August of this year. And if you draw a line on those car deals at say May of 2020, right? What you see is before the pandemic and post the pandemic, or as I like to call it, before adoption of digital retail and post adoption of digital retail. And I'm not saying that digital retail was the causation, but if you look at that line, what you have is gross and F&I profitability that have been pretty steady for about a decade, right? F&I managers have been, in the late 2000s, pretty consistently running about 1,000 a car. When you look at the data from companies the publicly traded that release what their F&I PVR is, right? They're running 1,100 a car, 1,000 a car, 1,200 a car, right? So everybody, been running that. And it was, I think, January of 19, and I can tell you the exact amount. In January of 2019, PVR on all car deals, right? If you look at PVR on all car deals in January of 2019, that total PVR was, I think it was, let me see, I can look it up right now. I think it was $1,200, right? If you look at the average PVR back in 2019, it was in January, it's $1,237 a car, right? So you had this PVR that was running $1,200 a car in January of 19. In August of 2021, that PVR was over $1,800 a copy. So what you have in this very short time frame, really starting around May of 2020, May of 2020, we ran $1,394 a car. By December 2020, we were running $1,500 a car. By May of this year, we were running $1,700 a car. And last month or August, we ran $1,820 a car, right? So for me, I look at this and I think, F&I consideration is moving upstream. We're better educating customers about the F&I product and loss prevention options that are available to them. And those customers are educating themselves. And through a more self-guided sales process, I think they're actually a little bit more responsive to our messages in F&I. And Bob, you've heard me say this probably 100 times. I don't think digital retail really sped up the F&I process a tremendous amount. I think what digital retail did was got rid of a bunch of the, bullshit brain damage that happens to a customer between the time they sit down to pencil a car deal and they make it to F&I. And the more that we can make a customer feel like they're in control, the more we can help them to at least be curious about the products that we're selling and provide education to them. I think the more of an opportunity we have in F&I to actually deliver tremendous value. And I think this brings me to, every analyzable metric is at its all-time high right now when it comes to F&I. Products per deal, right? Products per car sold right now is running over 1.5 products per car sold. It's insane, right? New cars almost 2, right? It's bananas. And I think a lot of that has to do with the market that we're in and the demand that's out there for people that want good transportation and the lack of supply. But I also think that what this presents for us is an opportunity really for F&I managers to lead dealerships in new and inventive ways. And I believe that our F&I managers at most of our dealerships are some of the absolute best salespeople we have. They're actually some of the most courageous and tough and gritty. They're also a lot of times very empathetic, right? They're freshly off the sales floor and, or they've been off the floor for a while and they're the, I think, potential leaders. And for me, what I think the opportunity created by digital retail, Bob, is really F&I managers getting more involved in car deals more often. And I think if there's a big opportunity that this presents for everyone, it is literally for F&I to become a leading role in delivering a highly profitable customer experience throughout the entire value chain of that customer purchasing a vehicle.
Now,
And
maybe some people in some stores now, like several of the publics, are, I wouldn't say totally eliminating the F&I position, although one or two are, but they're really trying to go with variable operations managers. So you'll have a product specialist that does, let's say, the meet and greet, the walk around if they're in the store, they'll go through the Monroney label, whatever features and benefits of the vehicle. But any questions related to price or trade allowance or F&I, they're now referred to the variable operations manager, who will take it from there. And I run into that at some 20 groups occasionally. A Ford meeting just last week, that was a big topic of discussion. And in all cases that I've heard people say, the CSI is better. It shortens the process. And you said something a few minutes ago that we talk about in our training class. In fact, Mike can tell you we talked about this in just the last couple of webinars. And it's the quality of our personal presentation with customers, and how this pandemic and the opportunity to change has given us an opportunity to really take a close look at what our F&I technique, our F&I presentation was, and maybe should have always been. And an area that we talk about it from a training standpoint is implementing the F&I, we call it the four-way stop. And here's what I think you kind of touched on, and I say it a little bit differently. We want to eliminate the chit chat, the crazy chit chat. We want to eliminate the mindless, endless questioning of customers that comes across ultimately as an interrogation or combative conversation. So we stop the fake chit chat, stop the phony surveys, stop the mindless, endless questioning of customers. And then when they're there, rather than have them sit in a lounge or somewhere, and the business manager, financial services manager is in plain sight, but nobody's in his or her office, and they're wondering, well, when am I going to get in there? And what that F&I manager is doing is preparing in the industry what many times is called the magic menu process before they bring the customer in. Well, what we talk about is let's bring it in, get the process started, and conduct that menu process with the buyer itself. The second thing that you come on again, if you would, you talked about how the changes and increases in dollar per car, product sold per retail sale. I know two of the public companies, just the past quarter, they were running over $2,000 a car, $2,000 per retail unit, and two or three others were within $200 of that 2,000 figure. The $64,000 question is how do they count? And how do they describe a retail unit? Are there throwouts there? Are they throwing in dock fees? And we laugh at that and say, how can anybody be doing that? Well, some stores are doing that. That's amazing what that will do to your dollar per retail unit. But would you address, I think you talked about it in Vegas at the Agent Summit, with your metrics and with your software and the numbers that you show, the stores, the dealer that has finally made the commitment to not be afraid, but actually put pricing up front from a digital retail standpoint or on the website, whatever. What differences do you see if we have pricing up front as opposed to just trying to wait till they get in the store and talk to the F&I or variable operations manager?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. There's actually two good questions here, right? And I'm going to answer them both the best I can. The first question is like, what is going on with profitability? Well, I mean, car deals today on average across all OEMs, across new cars, used cars, you just lump them all together and average it out. In August, they're running over $4,174 around front to back, right? And when you think about that, the front end grosses that we're running today are the highest they've ever been, right? I mean, in April of 2020, we're running about $200 a car, right? And in January of 2019, or actually August of 2019, we're running, around $300 a car. Now on front end grosses, we're running $2,300 a car, right? So the actual front end profitability is incredibly increasing. And then so is the back end profitability, right? So you take that and you add the 1,800 in F&I gross, and it's driving up a bunch of profit. Now, I think what's interesting is on F&I gross, one of the things that sticks out to me when I think about F&I, PVR, PRU, or whatever you call it, right? Your amount of F&I gross per retail unit, right? Like that number is $1,800 a car. Well, then how much of that is driven by product sales versus how much of that is driven by reserve? And that's a question I get asked a whole lot, right? Well, reserve, unsurprisingly, has gone up from, $700 a car to $950 a car, right? So F&I reserve has gone up in a really, substantial graph. But when you think of that as a percentage of PVR, the amount of that percentage of PVR that's F&I gross is actually going down. Mm-hmm. So what's happening is when you think about F&I, gross profitability, PVR is going up, but the amount of PVR as a percentage of F&I gross is actually trending down. And what I think is interesting there is, why is PVR going up? Are we marking rates up higher now than we did 2-3 years ago? And the answer is actually no. Rate markup has trended pretty steadily for a very long time, right? Rate markup trends, and I believe, I'll double check this, it's about about a 1.5 point markup. That's kind of what it averages out. New cars, used cars, terms, it's about 1.5, right? That's the kind of average markup. It stayed the same. What's gone up, Bob, that I think is interesting is the amount financed. The amount financed has shot through the roof. And the reason the amount financed has shot through the roof is because the book values are higher than they've ever been. So the banks are willing to loan, and those book values are higher because the Manheim auction is higher, right? So you're doing 120% on a vehicle whose wholesale book is more than the new car MSRP was 3 years ago. So now you've got these used cars that are, that have gone up almost $8,000 a car and amount financed in 2 years. And so part of that profitability is driven by that F&I reserve. Most of it's driven by product attachment rates. And I don't want to put a stake in the sand, it's all digital retail. You put prices online and everybody wants to buy things. But if you think about the data coming out of the digital retail companies that are like Digital Dealer, right? All of them are talking about the early attachment rates of customers in consideration of purchasing their vehicle, right? So, 30% of customers, I heard in a presentation today that around 30% of customers are selecting or pre-selecting an F&I product as part of their checkout experience before they come to a dealership. They didn't say what, could be Gap, could be Tire and Wheel, right? But that the idea is that consumers are starting to self-select. Now, I think about my days in the F&I office, right? If I had a customer come in and they got Gap and Tire and Wheel on that car, is that going to be an easy turn for me? Hell yeah, they've already said yes to a couple of things, right? Now I just gotta step sell them up to the next package and bundle it together and make it make sense. And so what I think is the second question I ask is, if they are moving these things online, is it impacting gross? And there are tons of anecdotes coming out of dealers where they're making more in F&I on their digital deals or their digital retail deals than they are in their traditional in-showroom deals. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Brian Kramer, today. He's the GM of Germain Toyota of Sarasota. Brian and I actually went through F&I school together. So we're like two guys that kind of came up together. He stayed in retail, I'm on this side. And he is incredibly focused on remote F&I presentations. You don't have to come to the dealership. He actually promoted somebody from the sales desk into this role. None of the other F&I managers wanted to take any of these turns. That person, then they had to promote somebody else in because the amount of those turns got so big. And then that guy's running $2,300 a car. Now he's running $2,600 a car. And the other F&I managers are asking to be able to take those remote turns. Where a year ago he was saying, hey, this is a remote delivery. Do you want to call him and do the F&I turn? And his F&I managers wanted no part of it. And so what you start to see is these anecdotes coming out of people like, Brian Kramer at Germain of, we're changing our model of doing this and we're informing customers earlier. We're going at the pace they want. We're not making them beholden to our way of doing business. And through doing that, we're getting really positive outcomes. And so for me, I don't have a specific data set that says, hey, if you put your pricing online, this is X, right? But what we do have is all of the numbers are going up. Pricing and payment has moved online in a substantial rate. And every person that's going all in on it is at least claiming to have really good outcomes. Now, I can look in Brian's StoneEagle and I can tell you his numbers are great. And the bifurcation of those numbers is right down that line. But, the hypotheses are starting to prove true that the dealership that gives the customer the most useful information in their purchase decision has the highest probability of earning that customer's business and has the highest probability of making a better profit on that customer. And
I think more and more stores are believing that and are doing that now. I think you're right on with your observations and facts with respect to the reserve dollar amount going up, and again the big reasons there that you noted. We're financing larger balances for longer periods of time. So you get back to just the basic formula of how finance reserve is calculated. But then, when I talk with dealers or hear people say, they can say, well, I'm running 15 a car, 18 a car, 22 a car, whatever. What do you think? How am I doing? And my first question always is, well, that number sounds good on its face, but what percent of that is dealer participation? And if they look at me and have no idea what I'm talking about, they don't know where that money is coming from. So basically, as far as repeat and referral business, we're talking in terms of that portion of the total dollar per retail unit, certainly being not any more than 40%, but more like 30 or 35% of the deal is dealer participation, and the rest of that is the products and services that's bringing the customer back. Another big change that we've done or tried to do with the sale moving up further in the deal, and a lot of conversation has been done as well. We used to spend, as you know, from a training standpoint, just a ton of time it was dialogue selling, but just kind of making it, and like I said earlier, an interrogation as to qualifying questions and need awareness, whatever. And now when I think about it, if I had to script out or define out what the F&I process is, I'm thinking it's nothing more than for each individual product or bundle, you tell them what it is, that's the feature. You tell them what it does, and that's not a long drawn out answer. You tell them what it does, that's the benefit. You tell them what it means to them, and that's trying to tie an emotional connection to the product. And then, rather than using how we've taught for years, the sales brochures or the laminates that look like some kind of a cartoon type thing that we're showing the customer with pictures and numbers and things all over the deal. We've found that we do a much better job and much more credible and professional to just give the customer the actual contract or agreement itself and hand it to them, and give just a brief explanation of that. Share them. You'll find the coverages, exclusions, maintenance requirements, and whatever it is, limits of liability on pages 2 through 5, and say, take your time with it. Be happy to answer or address any questions or concerns you have as well. And believe it or not, that's working in a lot of stores. And the customer has now seen that stuff. And then down the road, if there is a claim denied or an issue, whatever, they certainly can't say, especially if the store, and a lot of stores last week that I ran into are videotaping F&I transactions. They can't see that they never saw the contract before they signed it. You know what I'm saying? But they actually had it and an opportunity to review. What do you think of that approach? Is names and give?
I love that. I don't know how many warranties I sold by simply describing what exclusionary coverage was and then walking them through the language of the agreement. Yeah. Right? So for me in the F&I office, I think a lot of times the more gimmicky stuff it's why I think that a lot of the menus that are out there are actually making things a little bit worse for the finance manager, a little bit worse for the customer. So for me, some of the best moments is when you literally can flip back and walk through, here's what's excluded, right? So this is the actual item. So things like belts and hoses and tires and brake pads, and you can and put it in a language like that where they realize, oh no, this is actually covering the things outside of this list. And so I think that the more I truly believe, so Bob, the foundation of all great influence and persuasion in my perspective, and that's what sales is, right? It's getting somebody to see your point of view and agree with it. And most of the time that's displayed in them saying yes. And I think that 2,500 years ago, what Aristotle wrote in his Articles of Rhetoric, that you need 3 things to influence somebody. You need ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos being credibility and authority, right? Pathos making an emotional appeal, and then logic to back that up so that they can justify the decision. I think those 3 things still apply. And when I think about the technique of showing somebody the actual contract and walking them through that, you're establishing credibility, right? You're giving them logic to justify the decision. And if you link that with, some high empathetic level connections around the emotional reasons why not having this isn't good for you, then I think that you stand very highly to secure that transaction with a customer. I think that the new challenge is going to be, how do we continue to evolve that to influence those customers in places where maybe that customer hasn't even made a purchase yet, or maybe they're not even at the dealership yet, or maybe they're, they bought the car and they didn't buy it, and we want to be able to do that in new and inventive ways. And I don't think, the cartoon video or whatever is going to be the key there. I think that there's got to be evolution in our ability to connect those three pieces to somebody that may not be in the room with us. And that for me is the next frontier of this kind of digital transformation that we're all going through.
Well, from a federal truth in lending standpoint, we call it give before show, give the customer the retail installment sale contract and totally relinquish control of it and ask them to review it. And, we'll address any questions or concerns they might have. And that's part of federal law with truth in lending and or the Consumer Leasing Act. So why not consider it the same for our optional voluntary protection products? And then tie that into what we promote heavily are both NADA programs. The model dealership policy for voluntary protection products, where you set a standard retail price for every product individually or product bundle. Then also for the customer rate above the buy rate, promoting the NADA Fair Credit Compliance policy and program, where you set a standard dealer participation rate and never go above that, but you already have by law 7 allowable reasons to drop that to retain the business, and those 7 allowable deviations downward have all been approved by the Department of Justice. So really, what can be better than that? Joe, would you speak, if you would, to product videos?
Yeah, so I want to tie a little bow on the thing that you just said, because it really sticks out to me. I think that sometimes we have this perception, even in our industry, that the slickest, fastest talking person is the best F&I manager. And some of the absolute best F&I managers I know, and I mean statistically some of the best people that run, like Nick Jones, who ran 73% vehicle service contract penetration at a Toyota store for a year, right? Like that level of performance. Nick's not a real fast talking, smooth talker. He's kind of quiet. He's detailed. He was a service writer before he did F&I. He was, he was the type of person that was probably more transparent than transparency was just his way of doing things. And he made sure when he laid out the retail installment sales contract, it was not him trying to walk them through, hey, look over here, don't look over here. It was very much an education session. And I think that just a book, you remind me, there's a book that came out in probably 2011 called The Challenger Sale. And they clustered salespeople into different types based on success factors. Based on success, they clustered, bucketed them, and then they analyzed the buckets of top performers to figure out what it was that they did. And the common characteristic of the highest performing salespeople was really great at educating people, really great at teaching people. And I think that sometimes we forget that. So I love what you said there. The question that you were asking about F&I product videos, I think it's a really intriguing one. I don't have a good answer, Bob. I've seen great videos. I've seen terrible videos. I've also seen the stats of how much engagement they get on websites, right? I think there's, I don't know. I think that it's an absolute area of opportunity. I think videos sell cars. I bought a car purely off of a video, right? I think videos literally sell cars. In the F&I office, I haven't seen any really compelling data as to major impact of video on F&I product sales. And we've been using video to sell products since I was in F&I. I remember I had a LoJack video of a police officer describing and recovering a car that I would play for customers on my desktop. And I had a credit life and disability video, right? That I would play with leaves falling. It was really heart-wrenching music, your loved ones. And
that was the days of the Trunk Monkey videos. Remember those?
Right. Yeah. The Trunk Monkey videos. Yes. Yeah, so for me, I've kind of seen all the ways that those things have played. I know on a website, the F&I product videos get very low engagement rates, right? They're not a high click item. If you think about what a website's doing for most dealers, it's clickbait. It's just trying to get people's attention on things to click. and they don't have high conversion from a click perspective. And I don't think that that's because they're low value. I think it's just bad execution up to this point on where those are placed in the flow, how they're introduced, how they get work. I do think there's a massive opportunity for improvement in delivering high quality video to support F&I product sales, but I don't quite know what it looks like. And I think that there's going to be companies like you all at AGWS that figure out ways to do that in new and inventive ways that will hopefully create assets that are really valuable to help F&I managers and dealers convince customers that the products that they're buying are in their best interest.
Yeah, I don't know that one right or wrong answer as well. I guess if I had to decide today, I would say they're probably best used or seen on the website. But then, how does the customer navigate to find it and get to it? And then, what's the quality of it once they see it? I mean, the best ones I've seen are no longer than like a minute and a half or 2 minute max for each product presentation. They're done by a certified professional. Based upon the product, or an insurance agent talking about Gap or other products like this, and just somebody that's talking about the vehicle service agreement or the maintenance product in the store that has that kind of background. But I think it's got to be done, obviously the right way. Some stores will talk about that. You educate first, and then sell last or sell second. But I notice most of them don't have prices there. But in the case of a service agreement and other products, because of bundles and different things, and even like a tire and wheel, like we offer 4 or 5 options there, probably would be a little bit busy to show all 4 or 5 prices. But you get into, again, what it is, what it does, what it means, and give the customer the option with that. NADA, as Paul Mitri talks about it from a standpoint of menu selling, to sell from a standard simple menu format. And standard, we know what that is, but the simple menu format, I think really means to me, and I've seen the stores do it, and we talked about it last week and also at Agent Summit, is getting away from maybe the 4 or even 5 column menus and going with a single column menu, like to call ours unique financial package, maybe have a custom column that's blank right beside it, and then let the customer pick and choose and fill that column in based upon their driving needs and situations. That becomes part of the presentation page that you now transfer that to the selected decline page that the customer signs. And that seems to be working really very, very well, and not repetitive of listing a product, the same verbiage, the same dollar amount, the same this, the same that, 3 or 4 times on a menu that's always been platinum, gold, silver, bronze, or whatever. Now it's maybe just unique financial package and custom. Your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, so I have I have heard a tremendous amount of conversation in our business about the move to simpler menuing. And what I mean by that is, whether that's 1 column or it's 3 columns, whether that's 4 products offered or 5 products offered, it's a movement away from overly complex, an overly complex process in the F&I department. And I think that a lot of times we confuse complexity with like what people want, right? Like, I think a lot of times we think like, oh, well, it's got to do this, and it's got to have this, and it's got to move like this, and it's got AI, and you got to like hand the customer an iPad, and they're going to fill out and like things. And like, I think sometimes like we have these hypotheses, and I know like in my tenure at my last company, we were always A/B testing those hypotheses against results. And like, if something didn't work, just because we liked it, we wouldn't keep it, right? Or just because it was easy to sell a dealer on like slide balls on your website that would change the payment, nobody actually engaged with them, so we got rid of them. And I think what happens is there's been, I would say for the last probably 10 years, maybe even longer than that, a feature war in the menu space of shiny stuff to sell to a dealer and an F&I manager. I mean, whether it's 3D exploding cars that show pricing on parts, or it's AI or whatever it is. And what I am continuing to hear over and over and over again from finance professionals that are incredible is exactly what you said. The simpler the menu, the simpler it is to explain to a customer exactly what the options are, and the quicker it is for the customer to just get it all, the better. And what I love about what you're saying is that, one of the main complaints I hear about menus from F&I managers is how like long and complicated it is to set it up. Like they want, like what I hear all the time is I want a menu where like I just type in the deal number and boom, I got a menu and it's already set up and I want to make a couple tweaks to it. I can, and I can get it in front of a customer 25 seconds after I've got my like deal put together. Right. I was talking to a friend of mine that's a F&I product agent, and their whole focus is like the selling part of your turn should be less than 2 minutes. Right. And that like being able to do that, I think is incredibly complicated by having a is that complicated. So Bob, I love your idea of a menu that is very simple and very straightforward and easy for a customer to go, okay, I think I like this one. I think I like this one. Or even if it's this one, even if it's still platinum, gold, and silver, but it's got, 4 products on platinum, 3 products on gold, and 2 products on silver. Like I actually think that that's not a horrible way of doing it. It just is about making it simple for the consumer and not overwhelming, and the finance manager having to do a bunch of duplicative work to make it actually.
If we go with platinum, gold, silver, bronze, whatever, as we talk about in a lot of stores, you may really only offer 5 products. That's really what your unique financial package is comprised of. But one column has 5, another column has 4, another column has 3, the next column has 2. And until we tell them, and obviously we're going to get to that pretty quickly, but first impressions are lasting impressions. The customer looks at that and it's like, here we go again, does a quick count, and they're going to try to sell me 14 different things. But in reality, it's only 5.
Yeah.
But, if you go down to the KISS principle, and we like the 20 words, Mr. Customer, here's a menu breakdown. Here's a menu breakdown of your optional voluntary protection products that are available to protect your credit and your investment. Joe, as you can see, our unique financial package here at Harkins Honda is comprised of 5 options. Joe, the great news is you can choose all of these options. Quite frankly, Joe, you can choose none of them because nothing is required or is a condition of financing. Or Joe, if you like many of our clients, like many of our customers here at our dealership, what you can really do is kind of mix and match these options in this column. And as the custom column says, or indicates, truly customize a plan. Truly customize a plan that fits your driving habits and ownership experiences perfectly. First trial close. Joe, let me ask you, which of these options work best for you and your family this afternoon? I mean, how does that sound to you?
Bob, I love it. It sounds fantastic because you're now engaging the customer and it's becoming their decision, right? Like to me, nobody's ever going to buy my decision. It has to be their decision. And when they engage in it that way, you give them an opportunity to actually take ownership of it. And I think that it's like the example of the elevator, right? Like there's mirrors in elevators. You know why? Because you spend your time looking in the mirror, not thinking about how long the elevator trip is taking. And so when you engage them and they're thinking about how they want to structure it, now they're not thinking about how long they're sitting in this F&I office while you're throwing stuff at them. They're thinking about what way do I actually want to do this? I love that, Bob. I think it's a fantastic.
And that makes them feel like they're totally in charge, which is the way that they should be anyhow. And that still doesn't mean that you're not going to go back and do the is, the does, the means, and show whatever, but do it based upon how the customer responds. And if they want to know the total cost for all 5 packages and what it does to my payment, hey, you're into that. You're into that like right now. And that $75 a month increases your payment $250 a day. But what's that $250 a day do? Well, it does some good things. It protects your family budget, protects your good credit, your credit track record, protects your increasing investment in your purchase. That's your cash down, your positive trade equity, if anything. But even if you don't have any of that, each and every month as you make your payment to the bank, what's happening to your investment in cash? It's obviously going up. Number 4, what you're protecting is your personal savings. And what most people in America have very little of that. And if you look at some of the surveys like AAA, whatever, individual cannot handle a $600 repair without selling something or going into debt. So you're protecting the vehicle itself. So I think it's little differences that make a big difference. It's just so hard to break the habit and come off of those bulky menus that have all the bells and whistles on it and get into a simple standard menu format. But the NADA recommendation on that, with Paul Mitri and the model leadership policy for voluntary protection products is making a great amount of let's say positive headway and people committing to that. And I don't know of anyone, quite frankly, although I'm sure that people are that have tried that haven't that are not going back to the other way. They love what this does as far as customer involvement, eliminates the time problem, which has got to be a positive CSI factor. Again, what do you think?
I love it. I think it's a great way of thinking through it. And I think that hopefully we'll continue to see an evolution in the way that we present F&I towards things that engage the consumer, make it feel like their decision, and help them to actually understand the value of the products that they're purchasing, right? I buy F&I products on every car I own, right? My wife has a leased Honda Odyssey. It's got wear care on it. I've got a pickup truck that's got a vehicle service contract and a tire wheel ding and windshield combo, right? And so for me, I think that the more that we can help customers to understand why people like me that are industry insiders take advantage of those things, the better.
Yeah. So we're at 45 minutes in. I want to go to the next slides, but also come back to you at the end and let you wrap this up for us. Michael, would you take me to the next slide if you would? Again, this is 3 pages, Joe. You may not have seen this. This is our AGWSU webinar series flyer that we update with every webinar. This is the 26th webinar. We've been offering our webinars since 2019, but in 2019 we just did one a quarter. And because of requests for 2020 and this year, we're doing a webinar every month on the second Wednesday of every month, and been very well received. I wanted to share with the people again that this is not meant to take away from anything that our agent partners or dealer clients are doing in a store, but this is an on-demand 24/7 training opportunity from a compliance and ethics standpoint that complements what you're doing in the dealership itself. As of now, I would say to you, and what I always recommend is that if you go to agwsu.com/webinars, you can play any of these webinars. You can look at the slides that go with them. If you want that information, contact me. I'll contact Emily Furio and our marketing department, and she can get that information to you, either individually by yourself or collectively. If you would like our assistance, we can help you do that. But Joe, 3 of the top webinars that I get requests for on a regular basis is one that we did, quite frankly, in March of this year, and it was our special edition 90-minute webinar. It was the 2021 first quarter and beyond. That was a look ahead to the politics, F&I legal ramifications, emerging challenges, continuing attacks. And the 2 gentlemen that joined me on that webinar was, and I know you know both of them, was President and Executive Director of AFIP, Dave Robertson, and also attorney Randy Henrik. And of course, Randy has his own firm, Randy Henrik and Associates. Prior to that, he was chief counsel for DealerTrack for a number of years, but he also does writing for both NADA and recently updated their update on the Federal Truth in Lending Act, and has a great piece in there as it relates to e-contracting and complying with the e-Sign Act, electronic signatures in global and national commerce. So they were part of that March special edition. The other 2 that we get a lot of question on, the first one or the next one, also Dave Robertson joined me, and that was preloading products or services. Preloading products or services, is it legal? How to develop a dealership value statement. We talk about a DVS and doing business the right way, respect, honesty, integrity, transparency, and trust. And then that was one that touched on our AGWSU/AFIP compliance checklist and dealer aid solutions. And the other one that we send out a lot of information on, there's a lot of slides, was our February 2020 webinar, which was Successful Menu Selling 2.0, talking about some of the things that you and I just did. Successful menu selling begins with menu telling, menu introductions and presenting options, and then monologue, dialogue, and conversational selling. And now, hopefully not just with conversational selling, but being a good listener and much more audible ready than we were in the past. Mike, next slide. This is something, Joe, that we use with almost every webinar, and it's to work with our agent partners and dealer clients to help them develop a mission statement and value statement. And the mission statement that we use is really not anything that I developed internally, but this actually was from a large dealer group a number of years ago in Oregon. And think about this mission statement. And think about some of the things that you said earlier and the customer's reaction. And that gentleman that was working in what, fixed operations, and now is doing a dynamite job in F&I. But the mission statement: every customer knows what they're getting. Every customer knows what they're getting. They agree to buy it. They know why they need it, and they feel good about it when they leave our dealership. And if we would commit ourselves to that, just that alone, think about what that could do to our industry and the bottom line numbers in the store. And then our company, American Guardian Warranty Services University, training and value statement. Whenever I'm asked to describe what we do, how we teach, how we train, that can be for a legal document. It could be even if need be for a deposition or whatever. It's a great question. Thank you for asking. We endorse and teach. We endorse and teach the industry standard and best practices that are recommended by NADA, by AFIP. Then there's our internal American Guardian Warranty Services Seller Code of Conduct for retail sales. That's an 11 bullet point document, which serves as a guide to the proper sales practices for all retail sellers of AGWS products. So again, our goal, our objective is to help our agent partners and dealer clients maximize deal profit, meaning both front-end gross and financing and insurance income. So Joe, let me go back to you to wrap it up for us, and we'll let Michael kind of wrap it up with the webinar dates in the future. But how would you complete your comments of what we did today? Joe, you're on, sir.
Yeah, so for me, I think there's a couple of things that really stick out to me. One is it's an incredible time to be in this business, right? There is so much opportunity all around us for not only profitability in the way that the market's performing right now, but also in evolving and creating what the future of this industry is going to look like. And so for me, I think that everyone attending these webinars should be taking the things that they're learning here back to their dealership and applying them to the way that they're approaching this business. And so I've been incredibly honored to be asked to be a part of this, Bob. And once again, thank you so much for having me on.
Joe, thank you so much for joining us. You're a true professional. Have a great conference there in Vegas for your digital retail, and love to have you back again. Michael Day, why don't you bring us home, sir?
All right. Thank you, Joe and Bob, for the great information. Take a look at this schedule to catch the next webinar dates. And then, of course, like and follow us on LinkedIn. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Bob. Have a good day.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Joe.
Take care.
Thanks.